It should not be hard to spot that the official history is made up in a rush and is full of contradictions, unresolved incidents and discrepancies with common sense. Many facts have preposterous interpretations, the chronology is broken, and whole centuries and epochs have been invented from scratch. To find a grain of truth in such a situation, we must catch them in trifles. Clothes ornaments, culinary preferences, daily routines, archival documents, paintings, frescoes and mosaics missed by forgers. A careful study of these seemingly minor artifacts often provides unexpected outcomes. On the August 25th last year, journals around the world were spread news retyped from the scientific journal Science Advances. It had a strange title: Women in Ancient Rome Ate Poorer Than Men. In short, based on modern methods of isotope analysis of the bones of citizens buried under layers of volcanic ash, scientists have found that the diet of men and women in ancient Herculaneum, a city bordering Pompeii, was fundamentally different. Women ate typical European food, meat, milk, eggs, etc., and men exclusively ate seafood and plant-based food. As expected from historians, they draw a ridiculous conclusion from the fact that women in ancient Rome ate worse than men due to their lower social status. However, the European tradition has never provided separate nutrition for men and women, even more so different diets. Moreover, modern trends about the benefits of seafood did not matter in ancient times. Mussels, repans and other slime from the mooring stones were eaten by the poor, and wealthy citizens preferred various meat, poultry, eggs and milk. So what's the deal, anyway? What causes the differences in the diets of men and women? Who were those aliens in the lost Herculaneum? Where did the men of the haplogroup R1 go? Who founded Rome, and what kind of state was it? You will get answers to these and many other questions by watching our film. If we look at the frescoes of both Herculaneum and Pompeii, it is not hard to notice that men's and women's appearance is significantly different. And this is not an accident. This moment is equal in all the paintings without exception. And men are not just darker due to gender aspects or sunburn but have a persistently brown skin color, an aquiline nose, and characteristic eyes because this is a different ethnicity. Moreover, it is evident that several generations mix both racial and domestic. But if the traditions in men's diet were still very different from women's, then we are dealing with very recent resettlement of aliens. Important to note that the catastrophe in Herculaneum was common with him and neighboring Pompeii. Moreover, according to modern chronology, the tragedy happened not in the 79th year of our era but 1631. There is a huge amount of evidence for this fact. These are entirely identical to medieval artifacts and tools, including medical ones. And also has welding spots. Clear window glass, which, according to history textbooks, was obtained only in 1688, and of standardized sizes 45 by 44 centimeters and 80 by 80 centimeters. But even more impressive is the mention of Pompeii in the list of dead cities from the eruption in 1631 on the epitaph of Pharaoh Menelaus front of the villa. But, according to the official version, in the 17th century, no one had ever heard of the death of Pompeii, which archaeologists discovered only in 1748. And the digging was conducted under the leadership of Alcubierre, who was sure that the city he found was Stabii. There is a lot of written proof that the death of Pompeii and Herculaneum occurred 14 centuries later, but the main point in this issue was put by Andreas Churilov. He found old letters in the archives. According to them, the water pipeline of engineer Domenico Fontana in Pompeii was built at the beginning of the 16th century, at a time when this city had long been wiped out. According to the official version, this place has been just a field for many centuries. Further, we will return to this issue and tell you more about the falsification in the history associated with Pompeii and Herculaneum. But now, the primary item for us is the fact that aliens with brown skin appeared in Italy in the 17th century. And the fact that the ancient civilization existed up to that time but was artificially pushed back a millennium and a half deep into the centuries. Who are these swarthy warriors, and where have the Aryan husbands of the Italians disappeared? They really were almost totally destroyed. This is confirmed by the research of Professor Anatoly Klesev, according to which the men of the Slavic haplogroup R1AA almost disappeared from the territory of Western Europe 3,200 years ago. The scale of genealogists can be safely divided into 10 because it is stretched as artificially as the geological with the historical. And then we get out to 300 or 400 years mentioned above, that is, about the 17th century. This is a painting by Peter Paul Rubens, The Consequences of War. It also depicts a dark-skinned male warrior, and this painting also somehow incredibly falls into the period we are considering. Rubens painted it in 1638. The contrast between the invader and his captive is outstanding. There is no way to write off accidents, shadows, or a unique vision of the artist. By the way, the painting was ordered by the Ferdinando II de' Medici, Grand Duke of Tuscany. This is also an important fact. Remember this. The nonsense imposed by the officialdom that the artist depicted the god of war Mars and Venus, and all such mythical and legendary will be discarded, and we will trust only our eyes. There is no divine attribute here: crowns, magic wands, halos, and royal outfits. Before us is a scene from people's lives. The brown warrior breaks into the house and pushes aside the unarmed owner of the house, who is stunned by suddenness and horror. The second white man has already been defeated. The blonde woman tries in vain to hold the invader's hand. Another moment and the sword will pierce her husband. There is a dump, chaos and horror in the house, children, women, a book under a soldier's boot as a demonstration of complete disregard for knowledge, and a compass in the hand of the murdered man. What a Mars! What a Venus! This is a scene from real life. The braggadocio of the invaders, the identity of cruelty, strength and ignorance. What provoked the Medici, from whose family came 4 popes, ardent Christians, to turn to the plot from the Roman pantheon? Of course, this is folly. Whenever someone tries to impose on you some interpretation based on myths, geniuses, metaphors, certain epitomes and other special visions, watch their hands, they're trying to fool you up. Ferdinando II de' Medici desired to perpetuate the ancestral memory, the feet of the invaders who settled on the fruitful shores of the Adriatic. But why a soldier in the uniform of a Roman legionary? And where did these conquerors come from? The answer will shock you because it does not fit into the official version and has never been heard anywhere. This is one of the greatest mysteries: Hawaiian warriors in Rome. Probably, if you saw these images taken by James Cook on the Hawaiian Islands, you would confidently identify them as Roman legionnaires. But this is not the case, and the tag is not only a characteristic helmet, the origin of which cannot be explained by official science. And all the rest of the clothes and ammunition fully correspond to the legionnaires' uniforms. Take at least a toga. Do you know that this is a Maori word? Toga is a Maori word. The second name of the Ahu'ula cloak is made of exquisite feathers of a rare bird. And the helmet itself was also made of feathers. It was afterwards, in Europe, they began to be made of metal by order of the aliens. Have you ever had any questions about the purpose of this intricate comb, which is only a hindrance in battle? And a bunch of feathers from behind looks even more extraordinary. Gradually, we begin to understand where the famous skirt of a Roman soldier came from, a kind of Papuan clothes made of leaves. The occupiers were not going to change their habits, clothes, weapons, and helmets. It's just that local Etruscan craftsmen started making everything for them under more advanced technologies, from bronze, iron, and thick leather. They decorated them with exquisite ornaments, jewelry. The tarages, the name of this Roman skirt, have become exquisite. It has become a symbol of Roman valor. And now, in our minds, it is impossible to remove it away from the image of the ancient world and associate it with primitive Papuans. But who tried to explain why do legionnaires have clothes similar to palm leaves in their uniforms? What is the knob comb of leaves feathers hair on the helmet? Does it interfere in battle? Who created it, and for what? The answers to these questions lie outside the plane of the usual understanding. This is the improved clothing of Hawaiian warriors, a long-standing Polynesian tradition in Europe. Let us warn you straight out, we do not mean that wild tribes could capture a relatively developed civilization of Rome, although official history reasonably assumes such a situation with barbarians. In our view, the peoples of Sundaland, or the land of Mu, or Lemuria, as you like, were by that time developed almost more than the European ancient world. What does James Cook saw in New Zealand were already wild tribes that had lost their civilizational skills. As a result of the catastrophe, this happens quite quickly, 2 or 3 generations, and people live in the forest. Proof of this is a barely noticeable fragment of a drawing from Cook's book, where the ruins of ancient buildings are visible behind the Maori dwelling on the mountainside. And how did the censors not catch this moment? Similar ruins and artifacts were later seriously secured up, but nevertheless, in Oceania, Polynesia, and other places in the region, many traces of the former greatness of Sundaland are still preserved. But just soldiers did arrive in Rome? And only to Rome? Announcer, the mahiole helmet and ahula cloak are the traditional clothing of Hawaiian leaders made of bird feathers for ceremonies and military battles. Red feathers of hookbeaks and yellow honeyeater were used to create these clothes. These colors have a special meaning in Hawaiian culture and symbolize tapu, a sacred concept in Polynesian culture of rules and prohibitions. The word tabu comes from it. Red is associated with Ku, one of the supreme creator gods of the world in Hawaiian mythology, and highlights the divine status of the leader. Maybe the perception of red and purple colors as symbols of supreme power comes from here? Imperial, royal? We managed to find an image of a Venetian merchant in the Book of 1644. Who would have guessed that a European of relatively high rank would wear a cloak of feathers? What kind of a whim is this? And this is not a fad, but a Hawaiian national tradition. The leaders of the ancient Sundaland did not want to change their habits. Before us is not just a merchant, but a man of royal blood. That's who came to conquer Europe, and the Maori were just their warriors. And at first, these soldiers even arrived on their traditional boats, which are imaged in the fresco in Herculaneum, a real Polynesian boat and the same seafarers in it. Even the feathers are tied to the nose. We can reliably identify those spheres where the invaders have infiltrated by clothes, traditions, habits, and words. This is war and trade, and also power. A power that did not exist before the aliens in Europe. Strict, authoritarian, centralized and backed by brute force power. Many words are strangely in tune with the words of European languages. Here are just some examples. We have already talked about the concept of taboo. But manna from heaven and hyena, which mean exactly the same Maori language concepts, is impressive. And it is not by chance that in Germany and other countries, we can still find images of black and swarthy rulers. Frankly, Negroid kings and dynasties where men have typical Maori noses and Polynesian appearance. These first images of the Middle Ages were further purified by diligent artists. The skin was drawn paler, the hair straighter, and used the fuzz so that the nose did not stick out. But in the early paintings, their origin becomes clear. The broom of the Google locator carefully secures these images from the network, so soon we won't see them, and our children won't even know who the real invaders of Europe were. Dear friends, go on to watch the second episode of our film. You can easily find it on the channel. It will be interesting. Like this video, write your opinions on the provided version in the comments, and subscribe to the channel to avoid missing updates. You will learn a lot of new things. Enjoy!